According to my schedule, the first people who wish to speak, or the first person, my apologies, who wishes to speak on behalf of the EH4 Residents Association is Christy Luby. So, Christy, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Lord Provost. My name is Christy Luby. I'm here with Dan Findlay, and we represent the EH4 Residents Association, which covers the enclave of Drylock Crescent, Drylock Gardens and House Hill. We've submitted, we have a written submission which should be in your packs just now. So hopefully some of you have skim read those and have an idea of what we're on about. So the context is that one of our longest residing members has been here since 1984 and has been dealing with this problem and has a large file of correspondence with Council and Scottish Water. I arrived on the scene in 2006, so I'm a Johnny-come-lately, but I've been battering at the door on this on behalf of our residents as well since then. Basically, the issue is that we are a bungalow area, so we're all on floor level, so we don't really have much choice in this matter. We suffer from summer storms that surcharge the sewers, so it's not our own water that's causing the problem. It's coming up from underneath. So as you'll imagine, and I don't need to be too graphic here, but you can have all sorts of solid and brown water surrounding your property, in your property, under your property. All these bungalows have crawl spaces under the floor, so the damp-proof course is at a certain level, but of course when there's 2.5 feet of water around the brickwork, it all soaks in and just fills up in the same space as a thunderstorm can last. So we also have the problem then, because of that high water pressure, the water won't go down our own downpipes. So that tells you that there's at least 3 or 4 meters of head of water in those sewers. The water spurts up in the middle of the road from holes in manholes everywhere else. It comes up people's sinks, people's basins. So it's quite a severe one for us. There's also a public health issue in that, as you can imagine, brown water in your house, in your garden, in all your yard areas, you end up having to jet wash everything, having to disinfect everything. There are families with young children here, who could pick up all sorts of nasties. So then the long-term problems is that, your floors start buckling because the wood has soaked up the water. You have to pump out your own solemn, your own house. So, August last year, I was pumping out from midnight till 3 o'clock in the morning to try and get some level of water down off the wood, and my floor still buckled. My neighbours are the same. So in your pack, you'll see basically a bunch of photos from various incidents over the last 8 years, to give you a scale of the idea of the issue. You'll also see in the latter pages signatures from 40 of our 52 residents that were collected during holiday time who also have this problem. So it's not just me or Dan or anyone else individually, but we're powerless, really. You can imagine over a couple of 100 meters, how can you keep out water that comes up from underneath? It's it's an impossible. Hercules himself wouldn't manage to defeat this one on his own. So we really do need assistance and action on this. So yeah, I would repeat that it's not our local water issue. It's water that's coming from other areas that's transported in underground to the sewers under our area, and then it has nowhere to go when the capacity for that water to exit is insufficient. and therefore, it's importing a problem into our area. So that's distinct from other dips or where there's local surface water gathering. This is an underground problem for us. Our issue with Scottish Water is that they tell us what they cannot do. They cannot add any gullies. They cannot increase the capacity. What we'd like them to do is tell us what they can do. Those measures I think they could take are attenuation measures, like what are being taken in Craigleith just now at the Royal Victoria Hospital, with soak-away tanks that could absorb this head of water, and an investment. We're all paying water rates over the years, and we're seeing very little investment in the network. So, Edinburgh Council is collecting on behalf of Scottish Water, and they must have some way for supplying them with the bulk of their revenue in the area. So that is basically our submission, that this problem is getting worse, not better. It's getting more frequent and it's getting more intense. We'd really like to see some forward progress on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Christy, for that presentation, and thank you for reminding me something I didn't mention to elected members. You have all received the written submissions for all the deputations, and I would hope that all the elected members have taken the time to actually read those. So apologies for not saying that at the beginning, and thanks, Christy, for reminding me of doing so. The next group that I have here are the Owners and Residents Association of Queen's Court, Blackhall. And we have Ian Fowler and Stephen Ewens to address. And I see that you're online already.
Yes, good morning, Lord Provost, and thank you for giving us the chance to speak. Your members will already have the submission that we've submitted in regard to the extensive flooding that Queen's Court at Blackhall has been having over the past few years. We had a retirement development of 56 apartments, and last August 2020, we suffered severe flooding from overflow of drains, sewers, resulting in a number of our residents having to vacate their properties. They were away from the building for about 6 months. We've had extensive renovation works which have cost in excess of £200,000, and we then suffered a further flood in July this year. This situation just cannot continue. The sewers which come onto our property are not being maintained either by Scottish Water or by the City of Edinburgh Council, and we must ensure that this does not happen again. The situation, the waterworks are so outdated, they do need replacement, and we need to get this done very, very quickly. We're looking for the council to make sure that Councillor Osler's motion is supported. Do you wish to say anything, Stephen?
Yeah, good morning, Lord Provost. When we've had this flood, obviously the sewage coming out up onto our grounds is a public health hazard to the residents because it's into our gardens, and we've had to get Scottish Water to decontaminate the grounds. So it is a serious matter, and we do look that the council will take this on board and resolve this issue for us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have to say at the moment.
Thank you very much, Ian and Stephen, for your submission. The next group I have is Craigleith Flooding, and I have Kate Brown to speak on that. Kate, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. The floor is yours, Kate.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of a number of residents of Craigleith Hill Avenue, and we were really badly flooded last August. 3 homes, including my family's home, had water coming through the doors and the walls at the front and the back of the house, through the floors, through air bricks up through the floors, and we had dirty water sitting through every room in our downstairs in each of the 3 houses up above our skirting boards. It is, I think, impossible to set out in words to you the impact that this event has had on all three of our households. The initial shock of seeing the water in our homes, being powerless to do anything to stop or alleviate the damage, and not knowing what the ultimate consequences would be, was distressing. And the following days and weeks in which we corresponded and negotiated with loss adjusters and insurers and restoration specialists as we tried to assess the damage, was exhausting. We were out of our house for 5 months with our 2 children over Christmas, with no idea all the way through when we'd get back. We moved in early during lockdown because we were working from home and the children were stuck inside and we'd no garden to get back to our house. But we moved into a house with no downstairs. The downstairs toilet had an open waste pipe, which stank, obviously, because it was having gases from the sewer. We had holes in our kitchen floor. Our neighbours were out for 8 months. But actually, all of that is just inconvenience, and it is something we will and can put behind us. What has been so difficult for us is knowing that we will be flooded again and that we are powerless in the face of that. We are at the end of a street which ends with Crew Road South. There's a wall in my neighbour's garden, and we have a watercourse which runs towards that wall and to a pipe, a culvert that's owned by the council, that takes the water in a pipe all the way down to the Water of Leith. If too much water reaches that wall and the pipe, it backs up and it has nowhere to go because of the lay of the land but into our homes. The NHS adds a lot of water to that watercourse upstream from its Western General site. The council has allowed the NHS to build a surface drainage scheme which drains that water in, but the council, we've gone to the council as planning, we've gone to the council as flood risk, we've gone to SEPA, we've gone to Scottish Water, we've gone to the NHS, and we have asked them all to help us in the 12 or so months since we were flooded. And I'm not criticising any individuals here because we have met some wonderful people who have helped us, but as agencies, they have all said they cannot or will not help us. They have told us that the duty to protect our home is ours, and we've been directed to Flood Forum advice. Now, if you go onto the Scottish Flood Forum site, you'll see the advice there is how to minimise the impact of water getting into your home with plastic skirting boards, putting your precious belongings upstairs. It's really accept that your home will be inundated with filthy water and you'll have to learn to live with that. We've spent nearly £10,000 on flood protection boards, raising our air bricks. It doesn't work. We can't keep the water out. We don't have it within our power to protect our home from this water. In July this year, we were nearly flooded again. Our daughter was having her birthday party and we had to send the 10-year-olds that were in the house there for the party home. And we spent the next 30 minutes trying to seal our doors with expanding foam with silicone and barricading our belongings against them to try and keep the water out. And on that day, the water didn't get in and it didn't damage, but it will happen, and it will happen again more than once. And every time it rains, we have to think, is this the time that we will find our home full of filthy water again? Now, the council has undertaken to look at the immediate issue we have, which is a blockage, but we know that's not the full answer to the problems we have. We've been told that the council is looking at wider flood issues, but we are not high priority. Now, I know there will be places where more homes have been flooded, where they have been flooded more often or more severely, and I'm not asking that we are given priority over them. What I am asking is that the council recognises the flooding crisis in Edinburgh, recognises the extent and the depth of human suffering this is causing every single day. And I ask that the council tackles flooding with the urgency it demands and allocates the necessary funding to actually meet this crisis now.
Thank you very much, Kate, for a very excellent presentation, if I may say so. The next group I have is the Craigleith and Blackhall Community Council, and I have Alan Denham to speak.
Good morning,
Morning.
Provost. Councillor Osler's motion refers to flooding in July this year, 2021. But as you've already heard from the previous speakers, the problem is not just unique to this year. In fact, there have been 3 major floods in the 3 previous years, 2019, 2020 and 2021. And as the first presentation, you would understand that it goes beyond prior to that. And as you've already heard, it's not just surface water flooding, which causes major problems for traffic and transport, but there's also a mixture of foul sewage. That occurred very close to where I live and in the Hill Park. But what was disappointing was the City Council's response to the floods in July 2021. No city's drainage systems are designed to cope with this sort of short, sharp volume of water. And given we've got climate change, I think there's now a general recognition that there is climate change. And what might be happening is we have an annual event of floods. I just heard this morning that even if we can manage climate change, the changes in climate are embedded and it will take 30 years to change the weather patterns. So really what we're seeking is not just action for all the specific problems you've heard at Queen's Court, Craigleith Avenue, but what we need is a more proactive approach from the council. I think it's unrealistic to expect residents to report blocked drainage all the time. There should be a more proactive approach to dealing with flooding on the roads, but also these major problems for specific residents and houses. It may be that what we call wet spots, severe wet spots, there needs to be investment in upgrading the drainage system, the capacity of the drainage system. And so what we want to see is far more action to support Councillor Osler's motion and to support increased expenditure, if necessary, seek additional funding from the Scottish Government to address this problem, because I think what we have is the beginning of a long-term problem. Thank you, Lord Provost.
Thank you very much, Alan. Very concise, thank you. The next group I have are the residents of Egypt Mews, and we have David Kerridge and Richard Wales to speak.
Hello, I'm David Kerridge, and yeah, Richard Wales and Gaynor McIntyre are probably on socially distanced screens. Okay, then yeah, I mean, almost daily on our TV screens, we're presented with the overwhelming evidence of the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme wind, water and temperature events driven by climate change globally. At our very local scale in Morningside, we see this affecting our community. And what we've done in the document submitted to you is give factual evidence of the history of flooding incidents and their impacts since 1990. What we also thought it would be helpful to you to see is a report of our experience of trying to deal with the effects of the damaging flood in August last year, 2020, not this year, as a kind of case study. So in October last year, we had a very positive engagement with Scottish Water and Edinburgh Council representatives on site. And as a result of that, some investigations to analyse the problem have been carried out, in effect a risk assessment, but we haven't had any results reported to us yet. During the conversations we had, it became clear that there are insufficient resources available to carry out any of the possible mitigation measures that we talked about, in other words, the risk management aspect. So, you know, nothing has been done. And it also seems that the pace at which strategic surface water management plans are being developed does not reflect the urgency of the issue. These are said to be going to take several years, and we don't have that time. Perhaps we don't know enough, but we weren't clear where the real leadership in addressing the issue lies between Scottish Water, the Council, and SEPA. And on the one hand, we do accept our personal responsibility to protect our property, and many of us have floodgates. But we believe that the other agencies have the responsibility to either reduce the delivery of water that appears at our front doors, or to mitigate the risk posed by the present configuration of the drainage network that we can't control. So for us, a year on, it remains very much unfinished business. That, you know, bottom line, no action. When we look to the future, then we know that the natural hazard is very convincingly on an increased trend, with anthropogenic interventions, of course, driving it. We would be very concerned that there are no local man-made developments that should be allowed to add to our flood risk, which would leave us with the responsibility to deal with that increased risk. To put it very simply, we feel as though there's a very large bathtub and we are sitting at the plug hole. So our conclusions are that flood risk for Edinburgh is a really high priority issue that requires urgent action and maybe meriting redirection of current resources. The development of the surface water management plans, which I take to be risk management, should be accelerated and action should follow. And we recognize that this is naturally cash constrained, and as the motion submitted to you seeks to obtain what we hope would be hypothecated funding to tackle the issue, we strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for your presentation. The final group I have to speak are the Greenhill Place residents. I have a list of names of Hamish and Claire Mcdonald, Colette Cordiner, Ken and Anne Fielden, and Jamie and Hilary Gilmore. I'm not sure who is actually here and who's going to speak. Perhaps if you could make yourself known to me. I can only see so many people at a time on the screen.
Maybe if I speak on behalf of the residents of Greenhill Place. My name is Hamish Mcdonald.
Morning.
I'm an owner in Greenhill Place. What I would say is our experiences are very similar to those that have already been described. I've personally been a resident here for 20 years, and in those 20 years we have had 3 significant floods. Now the properties we have are principally ground and basement, and it's the basement properties that face a severe flooding. And in each of these instances, we've had flooding coming into the properties at around 2 feet, 2.5 feet, which, as you can imagine, caused substantial damage, not only with the water, but also with the sewage water that's coming up with that water. And again, similar to previous people who have spoken, that is required. For instance, my neighbour has been out of her property for around about 9 months while the works have been conducted. Now, I think part of the point I would make is that, as I say, we've been here for 20 years, and although it was not a significant issue in the early years, this is now becoming a very significant issue for us because the frequency of these events is increasing. Now, I don't know if that's climate, I don't know if it's the quality of the drains, I don't know if it's the quality of the work done to maintain debris on the road. But in the last year, we have had 3 floods, and that has left certainly my neighbours who simply have the basement properties in fear every time that it rains. It requires them to get sandbags to sandbag up the back of their house and basically to sit there and cross their fingers that water doesn't come in and flood them again. The other point I would make is that we've had a lot of contact with Scottish Water, and they have given us a lot of promises to conduct inspections to try and find out the cause of the problem and to try and fix the problem if there is indeed a problem to be fixed. We have had very little back from Scottish Water. We've had a lot of promises. We've had no results of any investigation, and we've had no indication of any form of timescale from them. So I would just reiterate, I mean, this is clearly a common problem right across Edinburgh, and there are certain parts of the city that get impacted more than others. It is a problem that is getting worse, and we need to recognise that it is going to continue to get worse. And therefore, we really need to do something about it. What that is, I don't know. But the purpose of speaking to you today is to try and get somebody to address the problem, put it on the table and see if we can't get some action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamish. Is there anybody else speaking on behalf of the Greenhill Place residents, or was it just yourself?
I think it was just myself, unless Anne is on the line, but I think...
Yes, I am. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can, yes.
I would simply like to confirm and endorse everything that other people have said. For us, I think the lady who spoke from the other side of the city about their new anxiety, that they have done everything they possibly can, and we have spent thousands in excess of what our insurance claim paid to try and protect our house. And yet 3 weeks ago, when a carpet was laid for the first time since last August, when it was taken away with everything else in our lower ground floors sodden and ruined, the carpet had been laid one day. The next, I was barricading the French window outside the door with bags of garden compost and a garden tarpaulin inside and out to try and keep the water, the sewage water, which was rising at the back of the house once more. And we just all live in anxiety about weather forecasts and in planning to leave our houses for a short holiday. Lugging sandbags is not something for older people and people with the only access to the back of their house downstairs and through the whole house. We would ask the council, first of all, to really keep up a regular programme of maintaining the care of surface water, keeping the gullies clear and looked after, and secondly, to use the council's weight to talk to Scottish Water and bring forward a plan to urgently address the matters in the short term and also in longer term, given that the whole plumbing, street drainage system and sewage system is long outdated and has to be renewed in the face of simply its age and also the realities of climate change. Thank you very much for listening to our concerns.
Thank you very much, Anne, and once again to Hamish. That concludes the presentations that we have from the deputations. I now open it up to members, and again, if I can just make it clear that if you are asking, then make it clear which group you're actually asking a question of. We'll start with Councillor Arthur.
Thank you, Lord Provost, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all councillors when I thank Councillor Osler for bringing forward our motion today, which has stimulated this debate, and also when I say that I feel ashamed actually to hear the stories from residents today and the situations they've been facing, both financially, but I think more so for me has been the emotional impact that people have faced, the worry and the anguish when dealing with these floods and the worry of them. My question is for, I think you said her name was Kate, although on the screen it appeared as Amy Brown. I think, Kate, your presentation was excellent and really conveyed to me the emotion of what you've been facing. But you did speak about how you've engaged with a number of agencies to try to solve this. You spoke about planning, drainage in the council, Scottish Water, SEPA, etc. So my question is really just a simple one. Is there any evidence of joined up thinking between these different council departments and different agencies to help solve the problems you face, or are people simply passing the buck between each other?
Certainly that was our initial experience. So there was a lot of, that's not our job, that's SEPA's job, and then SEPA saying it's not our job. We actually had a meeting yesterday arranged through our MP with the council and SEPA and Scottish Water there. And the problem we have is that there's a lot of talk about the council's water vision, which is lovely, but there is absolutely no substance behind it. There's no money behind it. There's no plan to do anything about it. And opportunities are there now to take the water vision forward, and they're not being grasped. So I think Scottish Water is working with the council, but that's where we are not high priority. So if you're not high priority, and I don't know where it is, you're not getting anything done, and no one's speaking to you. But The biggest problem we have uncovered is that SUDS, which will be used by Scottish Water and the council to deal, my understanding is that's the plan, to deal with the overloading of the sewer network, is to divert the water out of sewers into natural watercourses. Fine, there's good reasons for that, but the way that it's safeguarded is by use of SUDS, these drainage schemes, but there's no control over them. The council planning department allows self-certification, so the developer's expert says this doesn't create a flood risk. If they don't build what they get consent for, no one checks. Even if the council knows they haven't built what they got consent for, it won't take action. Even if the council, SEPA and Scottish Water know what they have built is flooding houses and people's homes, no one will take any action. And that's the position. SEPA will not intervene. It's not their job. And so if you live next to a natural watercourse, there's nothing to stop a big public body or a commercial organisation literally dumping its water in there and flooding you, and you're powerless to stop that from happening. And also natural watercourses are owned by private owners, not by one public authority. So if someone downstream lets their bit get blocked or collapse, or they're putting too much water in, there's an asymmetry there between the benefit that's taken from these things and the risk that's borne by other people downstream who don't get any benefit but have all the risk, and the responsibility to maintain and keep these things in order. And again, the risk is borne by someone else with no power to do anything about it. So I think that there are plans and there's joined up thinking, but I don't really see it as being particularly helpful at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you very much, Lord Provost. I almost have a question for every deputation, apart from Hamish. Hamish touched on the thing that I was looking to touch on, so I'll follow up with him. It was around the nature of the engagement with Scottish Water. I'm quite familiar with some of the issues, and I thank absolutely every deputation for the powerful way they've very clearly articulated the impacts for them and on their families. Some of these solutions have been proposed in quite a small bitty way, and some, as we've just heard from the deputation there, are proposing a kind of macro city sense, and I think we will need both to get this exactly right in the city. It was just really to follow up on the exact nature of that engagement with Scottish Water, and where did Hamish feel the Scottish Water were putting their focus? Was it on small things like non-return valves that I know might be solutions in certain locations based on specific issues and specific topography, or was it on those macro city things that will take a lot more investment? And have they given a sense of their ability and willingness to invest in those macro solutions?
I think to be honest, at the moment, what the impression I have is that they're looking at the problem and trying to find a cause, a specific cause. So they're looking round the area. So we're in Greenhill Place. They've identified which way the piping goes up through Holy Corner and identified flooding areas around there, and really simply seem to be trying to consider where the problem might be. Now that's all very well and good, but you know, at some stage we actually need some action. So I think it's a sort of they're taking an overview of the water issues in a larger area and trying to pinpoint a specific issue which they have not yet pinpointed. So we're still very much in the dark as to what is going on. They keep telling us there is an investigation ongoing, but we don't know the results of that investigation. We don't know when that investigation is going to conclude. So we're getting a distinct lack of communication from Scottish Water.
Okay. Councillor Easmeakin.
Thank you, Lord Provost. My question was addressed to my fellow Amy Brown, but really for others. And listening to this was very emotional because going back years, and where I was living, we were having sewage water ingress, and I almost 20 years ago had a non-return valve installed. Later had to have a pump installed. It's a severe problem. I guess what I'd like to know from Amy and or others, we know there's still people who deny there is any such thing as anthropogenic climate change, you know, and it's, you know, we've heard a lot about that. is there anything more we as a council could do? I mean, as individual citizens, I know a lot of us try to campaign on this, but is there any more that we as a council could or should be doing to raise that awareness that this isn't just something we see on our television screens happening elsewhere? This is very much affecting us. And what can we be doing to get that message across about the seriousness of it, the impact on people's daily lives of climate change, specifically in our case of these increased flooding risks?
Okay, I'll ask Kate to respond to that. One question to one deputation, please, councillors.
Yeah. I think that's a hard one. I suppose I think accepting and the council taking on the desperation and urgency of the flooding problem and recognising that it's the weather patterns that are exacerbating this. It's also the construction the city's seen, obviously, in the hundreds of years since the sewer systems were built. The water vision is fine. I think it's a nice document. I think what it says is good. If that was actually put into action and that every single new development was forced to recognise the climate change we're facing and forced to make their development, as low impact on the surrounding environment as possible, I don't think the planning function of the council maybe has the powers to do that just now. I don't know, but it isn't doing it. And there isn't enough. There's no regulator. CPUB will not regulate the volume of water that's discharged into watercourses. There's no oversight of what's happening with development and its impact on the environment. And I think that possibly there needs to be a public acceptance by the council of the extent of the crisis, the sort of human stories behind it. If you're talking about letting people know what's happening here, but also I think there might need to be some legislative change to put duties on regulatory bodies and give them the powers to actually take action to make it happen.
Thank you very much, Kate. Councillor Osler.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Provost. And before I ask a question, I just want to thank everybody for coming today. I know how difficult this has been for people, and I'm really, really grateful for you all coming to give us your deputations. My question is to EH4 residents. Christy, I wonder if you could possibly just, so you and fellow residents have been dealing with this issue for quite a long period of time. The council obviously has declared a climate emergency. We fully endorse the fact that we have to make change, and we have a huge ask and request of residents in bits and pieces. I just wondered, though, from your point of view, have you seen any change, in terms of the council's response to yourself since the climate emergency was declared, and the fact that have been in any way more understanding and helpful towards you to try to resolve some of your issues?
Well, I don't know if I could speak to that very well, because the council, to be fair, we went through Neil McFarlane and Peter Strong, and they actually engaged with us, and there was some actions with Scottish Water back in 2014 up to that point. I think Scottish Water will do the kind of the superficial things that they can do. They'll put cameras down sewers, they'll line something, they'll do the low cost stuff, but they know that that's just putting a finger in the dam, and there's a big huge crack above that hole that they've got their finger in, but they're not. They're just shutting their eyes to that and just going, no, that's not, that won't happen. We don't need to plan ahead for that. So I think, to be fair to the council, there's so much they can do, and they have engaged. But I think the strategy needs to be to have some follow up with Scottish Water and some pressure to be exerted. And the best way to concentrate the minds of people is to hit them in the pocket. And I think really Scottish Water should be Scottish Water should be getting the message that their block grant of rates is in jeopardy if they don't actually invest in their network, rather than just putting their finger in the hole here and there and just doing the superficial work.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christy. Councillor Neil Ross.
Thank you very much, Lord Provost, and likewise I'd like to thank all the deputations for highlighting the very real issues that they've been experiencing and the frustrations and difficulties that they have had in getting action. Can I ask the residents of Egypt Mews, David Kerridge presented very interesting and, of course, real life presentation. I wanted to pick up on one of the frustrations that he identified, and that is simply on communication. The residents indeed elsewhere have said that they feel kept in the dark, that they're not aware of what is going on and what's being done. Can you suggest some way to improve communication that doesn't seem to have a huge monetary cost that would help residents and might reassure those who are directly affected?
I'm here, but I would let Richard speak if he's able to.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I've been monitoring this for 30 years now. We had our first major flood in 1990, and we've been following it all the way since. There's been multiple channels of communication over the years. I have to say that the most positive has been from the council, from Neil Ross, has been probably the best. Scottish Water, there has been a lot of communication with them, but as of yet, we have very little in the way of response from them. SEPA are also in this, but they're just really as an ancillary operation. But really, at the moment, just looking for ways forward, whether there's a regular set of formal meetings, trying to get them together on this. But I really don't know what we can do further. Every time we try to push this forward, whenever we have the flood, I personally was very badly affected last year in the August floods. And we had good meetings after that, but nothing seems to happen. So this is, we also need some guidance from yourself on how to push this forward, because we feel that we've done everything we can. We are doing our own flood prevention measures, but it still means that when there are rains and there are storms, we all have to be here to make sure that we can protect our own homes. We can't go away. In the months of July and August, we know that there's going to be these storming weather issues. And likewise in November, every year it happens the same time. And we just need somebody to work with us on this and identify it. The way forward, I really don't know what more we can do. Scottish Water have they have done some surveys. We're waiting for results of that. But as of yet, we don't know any progressive ways forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. I have no other elected members indicating questions for the deputation, so I'd just like to add my thanks to the deputations for the presentations they've made today and for the way that they have answered the questions put by elected members. As I said at the beginning, we will take a break now to consider what you've said before returning to debate Councillor Osler's motion at 8.2 on the agenda. So once again, thank you. We'll have a break now, and I would ask members to be back in the chamber by the virtual chamber by 11:15. Thank you.